late this week is that Peyton Manning has informed John Elway and the Denver Broncos organization that he is mentally and physically ready to play at a high level in 2015 and that he is ready to return. And now the ball, figuratively and maybe literally, is sitting in the Denver Broncos court in terms of whether or not that actually becomes a reality. So with that being said, and certain indications pointing to Peyton Manning returning again in 2015, the question will be, is this the right decision? Is Peyton making the right choice? Should he come back for another season? Or should Peyton Manning just retire? Frankly, I think there are several things that are pointing to the fact that Peyton Manning returning is the wrong decision and that maybe the timing is right for him to retire. He's going to be 39 in 2015. 39. Why is that significant? Because no 39-year-old quarterback has ever won the Super Bowl. Obviously, the primary reason for Peyton Manning to return in 2015 would be to try and win a second championship, match his brother, put one more notch on the Peyton Manning legacy. Well, no 39-year-old quarterback has ever done it. And based off of Peyton Manning's playoff and Super Bowl experiences over the years, there's most certainly no indication that that's going to be what happens in 2015, especially with the Broncos team that, while being built to win now and be competitive now, does not have the right pieces in place, does not have the right formula, and requires too much work in order to become a Super Bowl legitimate contender in 2015. So why come back into that situation, now having to deal with a new coaching regime under new head coach Gary Kubiak, knowing that there's always a period of adjustment there, and putting your body on the line and at risk, in your future health and livelihood at risk by coming back and playing again, knowing that you've had those multiple neck surgeries in 2011. Why come back and risk it? Why risk further long-term health problems that could impact your quality of life going forward just to play another season for a team that might make the playoffs but most certainly is not going to win the Super Bowl? And when you look at what happened to Peyton Manning late in 2014, he wasn't that Peyton Manning, and people could manufacture this quad injury and this and that, but it wasn't just a imaginary quad injury. His arm wasn't the same. You could see a clear lack of arm strength, and his decision-making got worse as the season went along, especially late in the year. His arm got worse, especially the last 6 weeks of the season heading into the playoffs. Do you really want to risk tarnishing your legacy and being viewed as somebody that's just a stat chaser by coming back in 2015, knowing very well that there's no guarantee that you're ever going to play at that very high regular season Peyton Manning level ever again? I mean, there are just several things to me that scream out that maybe the time is right, that maybe Peyton Manning should retire. But then on the other hand, maybe there are some reasons that he shouldn't. I mean, for all the different things I could say about Peyton Manning, the fact of the matter is this is still a guy, even at his advanced age, who can still play at a very high level in the National Football League consistently. He did it at 36 when nobody was sure he could ever do it again. He did it even higher level at 37. And for most of his age 38 season in 2014, he still played at a very high level. He still played like the elite quarterback he has been for the past 15 plus years. So while he might not quite be that same guy in 2015, the fact of the matter is Peyton Manning can still play at a high level in the NFL. And he can still win you a lot of football games in the regular season as your starting quarterback. Flat out, let's be honest, he's got 19 million reasons to want to come back and play in 2015. You only have a certain window of time to make all your money. I don't begrudge Peyton Manning at all if he wants to come back for one more big payday, because frankly, he's deserved it. He's earned that right, and he's earned that money. So if he wants to come back because he knows this might 2015 be his last year, he's got one last huge payday to get, I don't begrudge him for that. I won't knock him for that. I applaud him for that. You've earned that right. You might as well cash in on that. He's also got the chance to pass Brett Favre in career passing yardage. I believe he needs a little over 3,600 passing yards to pass Favre. With all that Peyton Manning's done in his career in the regular season, to me being beyond question the greatest regular season quarterback in NFL history, why not sit there and just put your name all over the record books every place you can? You've come so far, why not just go that one last step? Because, again, you could still play at a high level for a very lot of money. And the fact is, it's not like Denver's a scrub team. As I've referenced earlier, this is a team that is built to be competitive now. This is a team that is built to win now. And while I look at it from the outside and say there's no chance that this team makes it to Super Bowl 50, you never know. They're still a playoff team. And once you get into the playoffs, even with Peyton Manning as your quarterback, anything can freaking happen. And most importantly of all, for a guy that has lived, breathed, slept, ate shit football throughout his entire life, I think Peyton Manning realizes that once you quit, that's it. There's no coming back at this age in this case. Now, once you retire, it's done. It's over. And this has been such a significant portion of his life, throughout his entire life, that I can't imagine it's an easy thing for him to just want to walk away, especially when he feels like he can still play at a relatively high level. So knowing that he's got a big payday coming, he has a chance to pass Favre in career passing yards, he can still play at a high level, Denver's still a competitive team, and the fact that once that's it, that's it. You know, there are many reasons that point in the favor of this decision and say, you know what, Peyton Manning, you should come back and play in 2015 if that's what you want to do, because you've earned that right. And I agree. I'm not the biggest Peyton Manning fan in the world, but I agree. He's earned that right. I'm not one to judge him. Even though maybe in some ways I think he should step aside and he should retire, I will respect his decision to come back because I feel that he's earned the right to make that decision. And that if he thinks that's best for him, then that's what's best for him. He's earned the right to leave when he wants. He's earned the right to play as long as he wants to play. And he's also earned that right to make that money while you can. That's right. Get them greenbacks of that old hashtag ass pocket, Peyton, as long as you possibly can. Now, even though I dread what would be coming in 2015 with the whole Peyton Manning ass-licking society coming out in full force, similar to what it did for Derek Jeter in 2014, it's just the nature of the beast, and maybe he deserves that type of season-long send-off if 2015 would be his last season. I most certainly assume that it would. So I'm okay with Peyton Manning returning. I think at the end of the day, if he wants to come back, he's earned that right to come back, and he should come back because he can still play at a relatively high level at the National Football League level. However, with that said, there are some things that Peyton must do in order to make this return work. Peyton Manning has to understand what is needed from him in order to benefit both himself and, as importantly, the Denver Broncos in 2015. If he comes back, the first thing he needs to be able to do is be willing to rework his deal. The Broncos need to be able to free up some money because they got some big notable free agents that they need to be able to lock up, guys like Demaryius Thomas, guys like Julius Thomas, guys like Terrence Knighton. They need to be able to re-sign some of those guys. And if you've got almost $20 million in cap room tied up in Peyton Manning, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to bring some or most of those guys back. So if Peyton's really serious about wanting to come back for one more run because he wants to win it all one more time and ride off into the sunset a champion, he has to prove it to me by showing that he's willing to rework his deal. You know, spread that money out over 2 years, do something. I don't begrudge him for wanting to earn his money, but if he's about winning and he's about championships, then it's time to put up or shut up. And one way to do that is by helping the Broncos by reworking his salary situation. He also needs to be willing to run Gary Kubiak's system. The biggest character flaw of Peyton Manning in so many cases for so many years has also been what so many people have praised about him. His great intelligence for the great game, his great knowledge for the game, his great passion for the game, and his understanding of the game. Well, the problem is that in big-time spots and big-time situations, Peyton Manning can't shut Peyton Manning off. He can't stop from thinking. It is paralysis by analysis, no matter what knucklehead tries to say anything differently. That is clearly what the case is. And it is the ultimate case of the inmate running the asylum. It's always been about Peyton Manning calling the shots and Peyton Manning running his system. Well, in large part, that hasn't worked when it's mattered most. So if Peyton wants to win a championship, he needs to be willing to run Gary Kubiak's system. He needs to be willing to take a step back for the greater good, both for himself and his team. Because the formula that they've had offensively the past few years for the Denver Broncos hasn't worked when shit's gotten to get. 2 out of the last 3 seasons, they've gotten knocked out in their first playoff game in the divisional round at home. And then even the year that they happened to make it to the Super Bowl, they faced off against the Seahawks and they got dismantled. They got destroyed. They lacked balance on offense. Peyton's got to be willing to take a step back. Peyton's got to understand that in a lot of ways, at key moments and times over the years, he has been his own worst enemy. He can't fight this. He must be willing to show his true greatness by being willing to understand his flaws, admit his shortcomings, and be willing to change at this late stage of his career. Because if he does that, who knows what's possible? But if he doesn't, then he's just kind of come back for selfish reasons to make some money, set some career marks, put them way out of reach for anybody else, and then just sit there and kind of hang on, get all the adulation of all the people for one more season, and then ride off into the sunset with his legacy, frankly, somewhat tarnished. I hope that's not what Peyton Manning wants, but if Peyton Manning doesn't change some of the things about him, that's exactly what Peyton Manning's going to get in 2015. And personally, I don't want to see that. And if Peyton's just going to come back and be the same old Peyton, then frankly, yeah, I kind of wish he would just go away.